So, what's the single most important habit when it comes to happiness? Well, I put this into more of a category and I say relationships and positive interactions. And the reason for that is this is like the single most powerful variable when it comes to shaping our overall quality of life. So that includes our happiness and mental health as well as our physical health, which is pretty crazy. And I think Mark Twain said something to the effect of one of the easiest ways to make yourself feel better is try to make others feel better. What I found through sort of my direct experience as well is that if you want to immediately like change your state or get kind of like a little boost, feel a little better, it's tough because it can be kind of like tense or anxious for. But like forcing yourself to have one of these positive interactions, like giving someone a compliment, saying thank you, just smiling. Incredible daily habit. So simple. Sounds like it's not even a thing. Just say, I'm going to smile at one person every day. Like a nice, genuine smile. It's unbelievable the effects that have. So I'll talk to you about a few, I think, really easy, simple, but very high impact, high ROI habits in the category of positive interactions and relationships. And I'll give you a handful of these to consider. The first one, like I mentioned, is just smiling. Right? Just smiling at one person every day. Right? It can make a huge difference because a lot of times we see people just kind of like, oh, hey. Just being like, hey. Like imagine that. You're actually happy to see him. And I promise you what you'll notice is, so humans have these things called mirror neurons because we're such a hyper social, kind of emotionally connected species that in just a third of a second, that kind of energy is mirrored back to you. And you start to say, whoa, people look happier to see me. Well, yeah, no shit. That's because you look happier to see them. Okay, so that's an important one. The second one I'd say is just appreciation and gratitude to others. So it can be something like sending a thank you email every day. What's that? It takes 2 minutes, right? Just recognizing something someone did for you, just checking in, right? Saying, hey, I appreciate you. Third one is giving a compliment. And that doesn't have to be like, guys, you don't have to be all creepy and every girl you see be like, hey, you look good, right? Not what I'm talking about. But it's more just genuine, like, hey, wow, I really like your shoes, right? Or it kind of relates to the gratitude one, like, hey, you did a great job on that. Or like, I do this sometimes with my friends, like, or my mom. Like, have I ever told you just how important you are to me and how wonderful you are? Like, I would be lost without you, right? So you can just give a little compliment. Let's think of a fourth one. So fourth one, I think, and this one is more of like maybe a weekly or a couple times a week thing. You don't have to do it every single day. It's just taking time to catch up with an old friend. So I like to bank maybe like an hour a week on my calendar where that's just time where I'll send out a couple texts to some people I haven't talked to in a while or schedule out time to connect with one of my good friends who lives across the country. Whatever it is, it could be friends, it could be family. I think that's a really easy way to kind of get started on that habit. Then a final one, I would say this is maybe like hard level, hard mode, is introduce yourself to a stranger. And maybe that's an everyday one or maybe it's a once a week thing, but this is really powerful for a couple reasons. Number one, you still get that social element of this positive interactions and relationships. And there's pretty interesting study from, it was Nicholas Epley at, I think he's at Chicago, where they surveyed people about talking to a stranger on their commute to work. And pretty much every single person predicted that taking the time to chat with a stranger would actually decrease their happiness. And pretty much no one did. Everyone would just sit there on with their book or their phone. But then when they did this study and they like prompted people to introduce themselves to a stranger and have a conversation, pretty much everyone saw increased happiness. So this tells us an important thing about our own psychology is that when it comes to interacting with a stranger, starting a conversation, small talk, we tend to predict that it's going to be a bad thing. But in reality, statistically, it's usually a good thing. So that's the first reason. The second reason, it just helps overcome that sort of what I call like micro anxiety, right? Because I'm gonna be honest, sometimes if I'm doing this, I feel a little like, oh, this is a little weird. I don't know if I want to do this. But the more you expose yourself to that and overcome it, again, it's that compounding effects of the habit. We build up a more self-confidence. I call it trained extroversion. To be just wired to be a little more social, a little more out there and a little outgoing, which is correlated with happiness as well. So that should give you a little overview, a few more ideas when it comes to thinking about this key habit of relationships and positive interaction.